we sanctify the day. And this is going to be just about, remember when we started Shmini Atzeret together? Right? This is going to be the exact same blessing, except with a section on Passover instead of on Shmini Atzeret. So we'll read the English on page 14. We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who has made us holy through your mitzvot and lovingly given us festivals for gladness. You have given us this festival of Matzot, celebrations of our freedom, a holy time to recall our going out of Egypt. We praise you, Adonai, who makes the holy people Israel and the festivals. Who makes holy the people. Sorry, you all are much better readers than I am. And again, for the first cup of wine, we say Shehecheyanu again. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'hikiyanu lazman hazeh. We praise you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who has kept us alive and well, so that we can celebrate this special time. And then we say L'chaim. L'chaim. Yeah, it's good. All right. So, that is a good year. If you keep your finger on page 10, that opening contents, you'll kind of be able to see where we are in the overall flow of the Seder. Now we are at Urchat, which is the washing of the hands, which we're going to pretend, because the water over there is ice water. When we did Shabbat, and I know that was now a few months ago. No. So what you would have would be, do you remember I brought in the hand washing cup that had the two handles? We don't have one. So why is there a hand washing in the Seder? Go ahead.
It's just like a ritual thing that you do before anything.
Good. Well, a ritual hand washing that you do before
eating.
Before eating at all. Okay? Now, normally, you wash your hands before you're going to say motzi, which is the prayer before bread, or matzah. Okay? And that's it. You don't do a hand washing unless your meal has bread. Okay? But in this case, we're going to have two hand washings. And at the beginning of our Seder, because it is a festival meal, we're going to have a hand washing. But because we're not going to eat the matzah yet, okay, so we're going to start eating. We're going to eat the parsley, but we're not going to eat the bread yet, so we're not going to say motzi yet. So you have a hand washing with no blessing. Does that make sense? So normally, if you were going to eat a piece of parsley, you would not do the ritual hand washing. But because this is a special night, we do. So if I had the pitcher of water, or the washing cup, I would wash my hands now, symbolically, without a blessing. And that's something that everyone can do, or the leader of the Seder can do on everyone's behalf. Then we get to karpas, which is our spring vegetable. And I say spring vegetable because while we're going to use parsley, you can use any, the blessing is peri ha'adama, the fruit of the earth. You can use really anything that grows from the earth. Has anyone ever been to a Seder in Russia? No one. You know? Potatoes. You use potato at your Seder because your family... Is there a Russian background? No. All right, well in Russia they would use potato. So we take the spring vegetable, but we're not just going to eat the parsley. What are we going to do? Dip it in... Who's eating? You can't start eating yet. All right. No, you can eat whatever you want. It's not the... All right, so we're going to dip the parsley in the salt water. Now, tonight, we're mixing kind of how to do it with doing it. So we have a few parts of our Seder that are going to be do-it-yourself. Is your salt water already made? Sherry?
Yes.
Oh, so mine is the only one that I have to do it?
No, don't put sugar in it. That's-
Okay. roast it later. I had a thing of salt, Sherry, and I got confused. Okay. No, it's all right. I had a dish of salt. So.
You know what? I think it's crack.
Oh. Sherry, you're welcome to come join us. Oh, okay. All right. So the salt water has already been made for you. So what we're going to do, and why salt water?
Tears.
Tears. Good. And later when we get to our 4 questions, we're going to talk about why the question is we don't normally dip at all. Tonight we dip twice. This is your first dipping. So we'll read together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri ha'adamah. We praise you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who creates the fruit of the earth. And then you dip your parsley in the salt water, and you can eat. Saltier the better. Always gets caught. Now, that blessing is the blessing that you would say for any fruit or vegetable that grows from the ground, not from a tree. So one tradition, and this is a newer tradition, because traditionally you were supposed to be hungry when you get to the matzah. But one thing that you'll see at some seders is at this point, now that you've said the blessing for vegetables, and this is a little seder tip, if your family complains about how long the seder is and how hungry they are, at this point some families will bring out like veggie trays so that people can eat like peppers or carrots or celery or other snacks during the rest of the seder, because you've said the blessing for the vegetables that grow from the ground. Again, not traditional because you're supposed to be hungry, but something you can do to keep people from whining. All right, next page, page 18, Yachatz, if you're following on page 10, the 4th part of our Seder, and it's the breaking of the middle matzah. On the traditional Seder table, you'll have 3 pieces of matzah, okay? And we can read together. Or if you'd rather just listen, you don't have to read. If you get bored not reading, read with me. If you like listening, you don't have to read with me. We break the middle matzah into 2 pieces. We wrap and set aside the larger piece as the afikomen, the dessert matzah, to be eaten at the end of the meal. We talked about that last week. The smaller piece of matzah is returned to its place with the other 2. So I'm going to take the middle matzah, I'm going to break it in half, and the bigger piece I'm going to set aside. Keep an eye on this, we're going to look for it later. And then I return. Then, we talk about matzah as halachma anya, the bread of affliction or the bread of poverty. So we uncover the matzah so that you can see it. We raise it. And pay attention to things that we raise and things we don't raise. We're going to talk about that later. Let's read this all together. This is the bread of poverty which our ancestors ate in the land of Egypt. All who are hungry, come and eat. All who are needy, come and celebrate Passover with us. Now we celebrate here. Next year may we be in the land of Israel. Now we are slaves. Next year may we truly be free. Now at this point, they trick you, because you just had your first cup of wine. You think it's going to be this quick all the time. So now you fill your second cup, but we don't have the 3rd cup until after the meal. Okay, that's how we get you to stick around after dinner. The matzah of hope is not part of a traditional Seder. This is something that's added, but it's kind of a nice tradition. On page 20, this matzah is set aside as a symbol of hope for those Jews throughout the world who are not free. They are not free to celebrate the Seder. They are not free to express their Jewish identity. They are not free to read Jewish books, to learn of their Jewish past, or to hand it down to their children. Their voices have risen in Jewish pride and protest. Tonight we add our voices to theirs. They have not been forgotten. Again, not part of the traditional Seder, but kind of a nice tradition. You'll see it in some Haggadahs, not all. Now, who remembers our Talmud passage from last week? Did you memorize it? It said, when you fill the second cup, good, again, that kind of got given away. Now, we filled the second cup, but you don't drink it until you say the blessing for the second time. So right now we're in lockdown mode on our wine, okay? So it said you fill the second cup, and here, anyone remember? Here the son asks questions. Good. And remember last week we looked at that whole Talmud passage and saw how the tradition of asking questions, and then it said if the son doesn't know how to, if the son doesn't ask any questions, the wife should ask questions, and if the wife doesn't ask questions, the father should read the following. Okay? And that's what we're left with the 4 questions. At my home Seder, I stop now, and I have us ask questions. We're not going to do that now because if we're done early, we're going to have lots of time for questions. But I do want to get through the whole Seder.
I have one question.
Yes.
Is that Elijah's cup?
Sure. Yep. If this is my cup, I think that's going to be Elijah's.
No. He should get the nice one.
You should. You should. And we're going to go through all the parts of the Seder plate later on. All right. We are going to, I'm gonna have all of my friends who grew up in Sunday school help me out. Because we're going to sing the 4 questions for all of you. Okay? The Hebrew and transliteration is on page 23. Now we're going to use the Israeli melody. I grew up with my grandparents from the Ashkenazi tradition. It was all very fast. And I grew up, how many grew up with that? Well, how many grew up with that? Anyone? Just me? The one that's very popular now is a more Israeli. I'm pretty sure it comes from Israel. Could be wrong. Yeah. So we'll do that one. Everyone see where we are? And at the traditional, the custom is that who would do this? The youngest child present who's able to do it. But we'll all do it together. Ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol haleilot shebechol haleilot anu ochlim chametzu matzah halayla zeh kulo matzah halayla zeh kulo matzah. And if you're feeling brave, that's the melody for everything that's going to come. So feel free to try to jump in with us. Shebechol